Hello, good morning, and welcome back to the Friday edition of Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, Justin, Quindy, John, all those people, and maybe a ghost cat, just because, you know, with Kurnico in the stream, ghost cats seems plausible. How are you all? Wow, that's some serious wind action, Kurnico. Hopefully you don't lose plants or roofs. Good morning. Guten Morgen. Yeah, let's have a ghost cat mascot. I'm cool with that. My dad used to tell us when we were kids, because back in those days we had like cassette tapes, right? And Dad had, get this, let's date us, an 8-track player. And my dad told us when we were little tiny kids that the thing that stopped the tape at the end was actually a ghost cat. So I've had ghost cats in my life since I was 5, maybe 4. Yes, good morning, good morning. All right, so Darius. He's so like, we're getting there. We're getting there on Darius. His arm looks good. His cloth on the front is good. I'm going to do his hat. I want to bust ass on this model today. I want to get the blue done. Because once the blue is done, then we just have a bit of gold trim to end, and then this dark, dark cape. And then maybe some glazing or some targeted washes to do this cape here. Maybe I'll do the targeted. I don't know if I want to do the targeted washes today. No, I really want to get the blue done. I'm sick of the blue. Anything we're sick of, we have to push forward and finish, because that's how our motivation goes. That's a sign for y'all from your subconscious. When you are getting sick of part of the mini, push through it and get it done. Like, just set yourself a goal, whip out a podcast or a music playlist, and just go. Something that will distract you. Put on a Netflix that's all talking that you can just listen to, that kind of thing. And just go. Because if you're getting sick of a part of the model, that is going to become a block for you that will, essentially, you'll just not feel like working on it, and the mini may never get done. Here on this show, we do not have the luxury of minis not getting done. So, we are going to go push. Let's see here. I'm just grabbing my various blues, except I think I left Irison in the other room because I was using it on a project. Hold on, let me grab the blue, the highlight. There we go. Yeah, my dad is not often random, Quindy, but he was random back then. He was much more random back then. Ed just didn't want to listen to you anymore. It's not Ed's responsibility, guys. I mean, I am my own thing, so... so if I want to get a painting big pokey tool, I'm capable of emailing. I mean, Julie, if Ed really does come through with it, then, awesome, but it's not really Reaper's job to get me a pokey tool. All right, so Irison Blue. And Anne, what were you using Irison Blue on? I'm working on this thing here. Yeah, working on that thing. It was a little out of focus. That's the only bit you're gonna see of it. There, I'm working on that thing. You might see more of that thing on Saturday if you attend my personal stream. But I really like this as a highlight for blues and blue grays. It's Pathfinder color. It is a beautiful pale blue with a bit of warmth to it. Irison Blue, 89525. It's my latest favorite Pathfinder color. There are many now, as you know. As you know, Jim. As you know, Steve. All right, so let's see here. That's a horrible writing tactic, by the way. Don't use it. Yes, they would have to cast to the pokey. Correct. They would. All right, let me get out my Templar blue. Remember, our shadow is Templar. And if we want a darker color, I've been using Stormchaser, which is a beautiful, beautiful navy. It's a softer navy than Ritterlich. It's a little bit lighter. It's got a little bit more, like, probably got a bit of brown in it. Earworms work. Yes, it's true. Except with Ed, you have to, like, triple your earworms. Seriously, that man has so much on his plate. Good luck him remembering what he said to you 3 minutes ago. Templar. I'm going to mix up some Stormchaser just in case. But yeah, if you're looking for a different and darker shadow for Templar and Brion is just a little bit too saturated for you, Stormchaser is desaturated. So if you're working with grade blues specifically, then yeah, I would recommend it. Hello. I'm happy it's Friday. David gets back tomorrow night. It has been like, it's weird. It's weird not to have him here. This is the first time I'm alone in the new house. And I thought I would be more productive with him gone, but I really haven't been more productive in a lot of ways. Some ways, but mostly I've been totally lazy and happy that I had a bunch of like leftovers so I didn't have to cook. Oh yeah. Well, but remember guys, Pathfinder chibis do not depend on Reaper. Pathfinder chibis very much also depend on Paizo. And you cannot underestimate how much wrench that can throw in the works in the hands of monkeys. When you are working with another company, especially one as very particular as Paizo, they have very high standards. They have a very definite idea of exactly what they want. So, you know, you can't, it could be at either end. It could be Reaper, it could be Paizo. It could be production in the middle that just doesn't, you know, it's not a priority or whatever. So, yeah. Like, it's kind of why Ed doesn't really like contract work. Because he likes to have control of the process. So when you're working with another company, you just don't. So I'm going to do these about a 2-to-1 as usual. But I'm going to do actually a 3-to-1 on the Akata. And a 1-to-1, or sorry, more like a 3-to-4 on the Akata and a 1-to-1 on the Irison. You don't need to be positive. But yeah, when it comes to contract stuff, just always remember there's a lot of steps in there. There's a lot of steps. And stuff can kind of go off. And it took, like, okay, guys, just to give you an idea, I think the first time that Ron mentioned, like, a Pathfinder paint line to me or a Pathfinder Learn to Paint kit or any of that was 2 years before we actually started work on the Pathfinder paint line. At least. So, it takes a while. Paizo's got their hands full too, with their release schedule and their stuff. So if it's not a priority, you know, so just saying, you just don't know where the breakdown is there. And maybe they just decide to call it off. It is possible. For one reason or another. There we go. Now we got everything mixed up, and this is really, really thin. We'll see if it's too thin. Yeah, I did not get a chance to watch. I've been working pretty hard since David has been out of town. I guess I have been productive. I got to some yesterday was my social media day, and I finally got to some tasks that I honestly have been waiting to work on for like 2 years, maybe more than 2 years. So I'm feeling productive. So I'm taking my Stormchaser and I'm going to kind of block in some shadows here on the underside of the arm, because we do want this down here. It's going to be pretty dark. And we also want the contrast kind of with the robe down here. So bottom of the sleeve is definitely going to be dark. We do have a little bit of shadow there. Since we only brought the highlights up down here, this does look like it's more in the shade. It just looks like it's a lighter cloth, and that's a-okay. It's not really a lighter cloth. It's supposed to be the same, but when you've got that shadow overlaid on top of a lighter area, you can kind of get that effect. I will actually make the shadow just a little bit darker here, right under the sleeve, just by layering in a little bit of that dark color. And that way it looks more like a natural, and more like when I bring the sleeve up, then it'll start to look like the same color. But here it's got this shadow from the book, and then it's got this shadow down here. So this whole sleeve is kind of dark. Yeah. Here. I just need to do flowers. 1 second. We are not in focus. We have not become in focus. We're not very focused. I'm not very focused this morning. Only got leaves. Did the back of the hair. Finished that last night. Just need flowers. And then touch-ups. What I'll probably be doing on Saturday is finishing any flowers I don't finish tonight. And then working on fixing everything. Like if there are rough spots, if there are areas I need to touch up, if anything like that. Things that need to be tightened, extra shadows, extra highlights. It's pretty much that round of work that I have to do. $7 a bottle for MSP? Sus. Crazy. Hey, Thormil. Alrighty, so introducing those shadows there. Definitely want some dark shadows right under that book, but you need a little bit of highlight because it's not all just going to be black, right? It's not just all going to be dark blue. You're still going to be able to see some details because surrounding light will light them up. So I'm going to bring in the shadows where I need them, and then I'm going to bring up you can see the midtone actually gives you that feel of shadow. And I think I am going to darken down this area here. This shadow area to get it more in line with this sleeve. And how much you want to spend on equalizing stuff like this is up to you. Obviously, if I like to do the putzing, I like to make it look cool. So, all right, I am going to bring out just a little bit of highlight here because they're probably going to be a little light hitting here and like starting at this fold. Oh, nice, Kariniko. We'll look forward to seeing you. Yes, Painting Big. Twitch.tv/paintingbig at about 3:30 p.m. USA Central Time. I will have my caffeine and I will be ready to go. And because I'm finishing a model, I can buy another one. Except I just got a whole bunch of pretty ones in the mail, so I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work. So a little bit of light there to bring in that. I want to bring up this fold just a tiny bit. Try not to like bring one fold up and not even touch the fold next to it. You want it to kind of, the light to strengthen as it moves closer to actual source, like here. And the light is represented by your highlights, so Definitely establish like that the light is here, and then don't bring these guys up so much, but at least get them a touch of it so that you can see the light fading as it goes under, see? So now there's a transition. There's this really bright, his elbow's really catching the light, and then you can just see that fold pick it up just a tiny bit, and then this fold just a teeny tiny bit. And then you've got kind of a logical progression where you can see that there's shadow here under the book. Hey, Neural, thank you for the resub. 27 months. Dang. Yeah, I do my stream earlier. I kind of like to get it done a little earlier in the day, considering it's like, it's not work, but you know, it's like not and free time either because I'm dedicated to it. It's on my schedule. Anytime something is solid on my schedule, I kind of, it's not work, but it like, you know, I'd like to get it out of the way so I can just relax the rest of the day. It's very good for my motivation. Ooh, that's very harsh. Hold on. That was way not blendy. Way not blendy. Akata Blue, not being very blendy right now. Hold on, got a wet blend. So that paint is definitely too strong. We need at least another drop of water, maybe more. That really threw our highlights out of balance there. There. All right, let us deal with that. Let me even out this highlight. So when you're dealing with a transition from a very dark color to very light colors, like you do with blue, blue is problematic for this reason. Remember to add a lot of water to your paler colors, because as you get more white in the color, it gets a lot stronger. Which is great for textures and all, but it tends to be annoying when you're layering. And I do need to introduce texture here, but I don't want it quite so harsh. If my texture looks like tiny little strong lines, then it's too strong. The exception is if you're underpainting textures with white and then glazing over them. Then you do want to see all the little lines, because once you glaze over them, it'll all fuzz in. All right, so let's see here. Let's see how this does. This is Akata Blue. It's a beautiful color. Let's get a little closer. I want to make sure I've got all my paint off my brush. I can draw a tiny thin line on my nail to make sure. That is pretty strong. Pretty strong. And I may just glaze. I've decided to just commit. Doing tiny little lines here to suggest the texture. Just like I did lower down. There are a couple of really narrow folds here that you may not be able to suggest the texture on. You'll have to use your best judgment. That may have gone a little too far. So I'm going to glaze with my Templar Blue, just for fun. When in doubt about what to use for a glaze, use a medium or a dark. Glazing with a light color can be done, but it's much harder because the white in the color will be so opaque that it will be, you'll see any brush strokes, like super, super easy to see brush strokes. So doing a bit of a glaze there over the top of Templar Blue, which is a medium dark color. There's a black dragon out there somewhere that I want. Forget which 3D print house makes it, but it's a really cool black dragon. It takes a lot for me to want a dragon these days, because I know I have a whole bunch that I haven't painted. So it has to be a very, very cool dragon indeed. All right, so let's do, that's pretty good. That's actually pretty good. So let's do the chest here. I probably won't be able to suggest much texture on the chest here because it's hard angle to get to. I'll do my best just to kind of bring it up to the level of the other highlights. So first starting with Ashen Blue, since our base coat is Templar and I've shaded with Stormchaser, I do want to get the front of this sleeve. Cool. That's true. Reaperland may reshow them. If they're super cool, then Reaperland should reshow them. Because super coolness. So you're just getting the front of that arm to pick up the light. And then we've got to bring up our other highlights because you can see down here the light is much stronger. We have to emulate this highlight here. Not by a lot, but we've got to do it. Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be that bright because this is a horizontal surface to the light. Or, sorry. Yeah, it's in line with the light, sorry. And it doesn't interrupt it. Sorry. Vertical surface to the light. Like I said, my focus today, not there. I don't know what I did to myself yesterday, but... You should not forget Reaperland. Are you all caught up now, Quindy? Have you finally, like, gotten Reaper's vast VOD chaos sorted into YouTube? Just bringing up the light here. Don't bring it up all the way under the hair. You still want a shadow under that. So we've got a highlight that's more in line with this other surface that is vertical and not horizontal. Horizontal surface should have the strongest light. Now, some of these folds are going to be like horizontal, right? And the light is going to hit them. And that's like where they stick out the most. You can put out a little bit more highlight. It can be hard to paint around Ratty's little face here. Now that's a little linear, so I'm going to go back actually and grab some of my Ashen Blue, blend this in a little bit. Sometimes I put down a line, sometimes a line highlight works just fine, and sometimes when you put it down, it'll be just really evident, and blending it in can help. There we go. That's better. There we are. That's better. All right. Now we just got this in the hat. Let's just do the hat, actually. Let's do hat. We'll finish with sleeve. Hat is harder. Although, actually, it's not. Hat looks harder. So you can see on this, even when I hold it up in a position where the light is falling on it, you can see that the shadow is on the back of the hat. So we're just going to go ahead, go to the back side, and we are going to block that in with Stormchaser Blue. Just kind of block it in. Block, 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 block. All the way up. Kind of in a conical kind of shape, just like the hat. Remember that highlights and shadows mimic the shape of the surface. So it's not that hard. Now I'm going to take my brush and just kind of feather in this edge a little bit. There we go. Let's see here. That's the forward. If that's the back, that's the back. That'll be good. All right. So now we can take our Templar blue and we can kind of blend in that shadow a little bit if we wish to. You can also bring that shadow more around, but I'm feeling like it's pretty good. So if I take my Templar blue and kind of paint it across that dividing line between my base coat and my shadow, it'll blend in. So you and your doglets are going to be buried, huh, Dogfather? I haven't had dogs when I've lived in a snowy place, except for like way back when I was a kid, when I was still in Wisconsin. Neither of our dogs then like totally adored the snow. So kind of just feathering across this line here to try to bring it to disguise the line a little bit. So you're going across the line with thin paint to kind of blur that in. There we go. Did lose a little bit of my shadow, so I'm going to go back and grab it. So again, we're using Stormchaser blue for the shadow here. Make sure that I don't lose the shadow that I want. So, okay. So since this is, by the way, in shadow because his head is tilted back a little bit. Yeah, Kiri loved the snow. Loved. When she was a younger dog especially. Not so much when she got older. But when she was a younger dog, like, snow was like, she would crazy. Racing around the yard. She would, like, launch herself off of the porch and do a play bow in midair when there was snow. Like, that was Kiri in snow. It was insane. So again, we want a cone, right? We want to emulate the shape of the hat with our highlight. So we're going to make it narrower as it gets up top and wider at the bottom. And remember, I'll wait to do a lot of the texture until we're a little bit further with our highlights. Although I am using the correct brush stroke for that texture, which is just a good habit to get into. If you're going to do textures, just get into the habit of using the correct directional brushstroke for your texture, even in earlier layers. That way, if you have any brushstrokes that do end up hanging around, they're at least going in the right direction, like they're on the top of the hat. Yeah, it's Friday. Friday is Finger Fumble Friday. I'm convinced. You grab some more ashen blue and try to blend this out just a little bit more. Try to make my brush strokes really thin if I can. The thinner your paint, the thinner a brush stroke you're going to be able to do. The thicker your paint, the wider the brush stroke. So if you're trying to do really fine detail and it's just looking clumsy, more thin paint and less paint on your brush. All right, let's look at our Akata blue here, which I thinned down, but which still leaves a fair amount of texture. I may have to drop even more water into it. Kiri's favorite treats were human food, for sure. She liked a lot of other treats. If it was a dog treat, it was okay. But her favorite foods were when I was roasting a duck and pork belly. Pork belly was the best. Pork belly and duck, she would stand there with her nose like right next to the oven, just inhaling. The first time I gave her a tiny piece of roasted duck after I had cooked it, her eyes actually got big when she tasted it. Like, I'd never seen it happen in a dog before. It was so funny. And Kiri had big eyes anyway. So, like, when her eyes got big, you noticed. Yeah, well, fat is flavor, especially for dogs, right? Even more so. I mean, it is for humans, but dogs don't get all the other seasonings. Like, you know, their treats aren't typically like loaded with salt and sugar like ours are. So when you give a dog a nice fatty piece of, you know, seasoned meat, they're like, oh my god, it blows their little minds. No wonder they always want our food. I don't blame them. So yeah. And then when she tried pork belly, that was her new favorite. She had never had pork belly. Like, she had duck a couple times before I made a pork belly for David and I, and then pork belly was the new ascendant food. But yeah, way too fatty to have on a regular basis. She was just taken after mama, because I did that I'm always on that high fat diet, right, Kariniko? Since I did keto, and then now I'm on low carb, both of which are a high fat diet. High fat, low carb. Moderate protein. Alrighty, so we've got that suggestion of texture coming on to the hat. We need to blend it in a little bit better there. We can do that by getting our ashen blue. Yeah, I've seen swings like that in Texas. It really shocks the poor trees. So we'll just go a little bit back and forth here. And sometimes I'll even do a quick spot blend of on my brush of both colors. Like, I'll just mix a little bit of Avocado with a little bit of Ashen and do kind of an intermediate blend. And that's how you can get blends. If you're not real good at layering out the gate, you can just mix intermediate shades and just layer them over. And now we're getting a nice texture on the hat there. And I do want a little more light on the front there. So I think I'm gonna put down another layer of this Akata blue and bring it up just a little bit of irisin down at the bottom, where maybe there'll be a bit of a reflection of light off the brim here. So we can rationalize making this area above his eyes a little bit brighter, and that will also help draw attention to the face. Today's questions on the forum. Okay. Drooling. I bet. Because that's salty and fatty, right? The cat's like, oh my god, what is this ambrosia? Oh no, poor dog. Blow coat. Oh no, it was a trick. It's a trap. Yeah, we've had false springs in Texas too. Out here, it's pretty just, it doesn't vary a lot. We do have cold spells. It gets down almost to freezing at night. This is a lot like Arizona. Like, when I go to visit my parents, it's typically in the winter, and they're south of Phoenix. And it's a lot like this. It's just like kind of like nice and temperate and sunny during the day, and then at night the temperatures plunge down. Oh, and it's my little squirrel. Hello, little black squirrel. Eating a nut. Out on the fence. In the sun. It's actually kind of a cool black squirrel. It has a lot of red in its coat and a lot of black on its backside. 24 inches of snow. Dang. I hope you're prepared, Lady Nim. That's a lot of snow. It's kind of fun as long as you have power and you have well stocked on food and water and all the necessities. Unexpected days off are sometimes the best days off. There. A little bit of light bouncing off the rim of the hat there. Bringing in just a tiny bit of iridescent blue. And that's nice because then you've got this line of light leading up to the face, and then the light here, and then the white beard. Like I almost want to redo the beard in like a brown or something, but he works with white, so just because I've got a lot of light colors here, and there's like putting more color in a beard would maybe bring him closer, but I wanted him to be like old. So this is one of the problems with real pale skin tones is they can draw the eye somewhat, but they aren't warm enough to really attract the eye as much. So once I put this gold rim on his hat, then we'll have a little bit more significant warmth up here, and we'll also be repeating the gold around the model so that the eye will go around the model, which is something we need to do. Actually, I would say probably a red oxide with Naples yellow with black. If you wanted to be much more exciting, you'd use you'd mix ultramarine blue to make your black, and end up with a dark purple swirl. Oh, he or she decided that they did not want to be the subject of our next color experiment and has fled. No, I want that to be dark so the face stands out. I don't want to add in other... Either I repaint the entire thing, but I'm not going to tune the salt and pepper. I like how the salt and pepper came out. The only question is, will I have enough warmth to draw the eye up here? So this is the quandary you have if you're painting an elderly person with not much skin, who's really pale skin, who has gray hair, is that it's hard to bring the warmth up there. To draw the eye, you have to use other tools. But I'm not done yet. So changing everything at this point would be a mistake. Because until you have done this, the rim of the hat, which is going to be gold, until you've done that, you really can't make a decision. Because you won't know how it's going to look. So I did that on, what's her name? The blacks at the bottom of the hair here are actually crimson... red ochre and ultramarine. This is why you need to embrace painting like an artist. Thormel. Artists do this crap all the time. If you mix any number, I mean, you know you can make mud by mixing anything. So if you're using reasonably, relatively dark colors, meaning darker than a 6 on the scale. Sorry, do we start at black? Is black 1? Yes. So if you're mixing colors darker than a value 4, you're going to end up with something close to black. And it's going to be a much more interesting color than if you just use black. This is why I use black like so rarely. I did it already, actually. We've got blush. You're not seeing it much on camera, Shadow Raven, but he does have like a pink nose. And yeah, you can do that on old skin, especially if it's like, an old wizard who's been drinking a lot. I chose to make him very pink on the skin, and that's the same color that's echoed on the rat's paws. But there's only so much you can do and still get the old, pale wizard in his tower look. So... Also, as far as ultramarine blue, I would don't use ultramarine blue of Reaper. Use Ultramarine Shadow, which is closer to a true ultramarine blue in tube paints, Thormel. Right. And that's just the camera. Like, we're just not getting... You can see it a little bit there. But it's not transmitting it. It's more apparent in person than it is... And I also have a little bit of pink on the hand, as you can see. But... when you back out, you're not going to pick that up. And it's not as strong as all the other colors on the model. And so that's when... Oh, hello, squirrel. But again, I can't make a judgment until I put the gold here. When I put the gold here, there's going to be a change. So then you have to stop and you have to think. Unfortunately, the change that's likely to happen is the skin tone will bleach out even further because we're putting a yellow right there. So... Oh, cute. Cardinals. Yay. But yeah, I mean, so if I mix any, like, you can mix like a bunch of like saturated darks, like, and it'll make black. It'll make a good stand-in for black. It doesn't matter. The only reason I used those particular colors on her is that I had them open because I was painting the red hair. So I was already using ultramarine, from dark ultramarine for my shadows in some places to mix shadows. To mix my teal. So, alrighty, let's see here. Okay, back sleeve, and then we're, oh yeah, and we've got the shadow on the hat. If we want to, we could bring up a little bit of light toward the bottom where there might be light bouncing up. A little bit. Don't want to add a true highlight back here, but you might get some reflected light, so you can suggest that by putting just a little bit of highlight in the back of the shadow so that it's not totally bland back here on the back of the head. There. All right, sleeve. Hey, Varl, thank you. 28 months. 19-month streak. Dang. That's a long time. That's a very, very long time. That's many moons. Many, many moons. Ultramarine Shadow is one of the great unsung beautiful paints of Master Series. It is one of the most glorious, gorgeous, saturated colors we make. If you are a fan of blues, you should be looking at it. You had better own a bottle. It is one of the paints that I keep in my drawer here because it is so very useful. Both as a mixing color and just as itself. If I'm doing a muted blue, I'm not using it for a shadow on this blue because I want a more muted color because we're working with a grayed out blue. So I don't want a very, very saturated shadow. It would look weird. Wouldn't look right. But on a brighter blue, or to use for shading other things, I regularly use, when I'm working with the tube paint, I regularly use ultramarine, dark ultramarine, which is equivalent to ultramarine shadow. I regularly use it to build shadows by mixing it with other colors. Cool, Karaniko. Bottle of Ultramarine Shadow 9187, Gray Mouser. I saw a hummingbird the other day, right out my window, right on the patio. He was very interested in our baby avocado tree. Which, excitement, our gardener thinks our avocado tree is going to give us avocados this year. Oh, hello, little birds. I've got birds staring at me outside. I can't tell what they are, but they're like, they've decided, apparently all the animals that were confused yesterday, and now they've decided that this fence is the best place to sun themselves ever. Which I can't blame them. It gets the morning sun really directly. So it's probably nice and warm. And sheltered from any wind. They're going to be really sad again when we put a new fence in. Oh, wow. Fresh steak. Fresh ribeye. That's what I think when I see butchered a cow. We have, I don't know if we have ruby-throated ones around here. They kind of look like it, like their color palette looks like it. They're green. Their outer feathers, their wings and everything are greenish. Greenish or bright green. In our neighborhood, there are a lot of flowers, and people regularly plant flowers that hummingbirds love, so we get a lot of hummingbirds. So I'm just bringing up, again, I'm using a brush stroke that is emulating the texture that I want on the cloth, even before I'm laying down to actual texture. Yeah, I love hummingbirds. I'm so happy to finally live in a place where they have them. I was always jealous of my mom because they live in Arizona for the winter because they had hummingbirds. Not a thing, yep. Nope, yeah. Yeah, that was the first one I'd seen actually swooping around our area. We should plant some plants on that side that hummingbirds like. I should go to the garden center. We have a tree on the other side of the house, or our neighbors have a tree that just reaches over to us. Where it's a bottle brush tree, I think, and that's the colloquial name for it. And hummingbirds apparently love the flowers. But we don't have anything on this side of the house, right, where I'm always sitting and looking out the big windows that we have. All right, so remember how bright, you can see on the other side here how bright that highlight is on top of the arm. So we do have to bring that up. But I do need to go in here with my shadow first and bring out these folds a little more at the bottom. Yeah, birds, gosh, they love sunflower seeds, don't they? I am tempted to get a bird feeder, but I'm afraid that the squirrels would totally ransack it. So I'd have to figure out a way and a good squirrel baffle and a way to keep them off of it. I just have no idea how we'd do it. So the birds may need to get their food elsewhere. Because I don't know that we have a good position for a feeder. So I'm going to actually go vertical with some of these shadows to start with, and then I can always blend them in. Normally with long, narrow folds, you don't want to go vertical, but if you have a more narrow fold, it's okay to block it in with a vertical stroke and then blend it in with a horizontal stroke. If you do everything vertically, it's very hard to get blends, unless you're wet blending. But see, this is, remember always, guys, that when you're trying to bring out details, you don't just have to highlight. You can define details by darkening shadows as well. And in shaded areas on your model, that is the way to go. Your highest highlight may be your base coat in that case. So we've got those folds defined pretty nicely. Owls are cool. There we go. So that's good. I'm going to bring up the shadow just around to the middle. And then I'm going to probably fudge it in with a little bit of Templar. We don't want that shadow to go too far north, though. It's really a thing for the southern part of the mini. So I can blend it in, a little bit of wet blending to make a nice fade. And there we go. So now I have to come back and figure out, bring down my highlights a little bit. I have a little bit too much here of shadow. Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see if the squirrels get mitigated when we get a puppy. Depending on if the puppy cares about the squirrels at all. Some dogs just don't. But Shilohs do tend to have a bit of prey drive, so we'll see. It will no longer be, our yard will no longer be a tranquil sanctuary for them, that's for sure. There we go. Now I want to bring in my Akata blue and start really bringing in some highlights. Akata will be a highlight on the middle area and the upper area, but will not go into the shadows. Ashen is our highest highlight in the shadows. There's plenty of places that animals can run in our yard, so I'm not too worried about them. They can go behind the hedges and up inside the hedges. They can go up on the fence. But they won't be able to just, like, hang out and own the place like they do now. Which is good. Alrighty. So let's bring in that texture here. Building it up toward the top of the arm. A little bit too much, like you can see the marks. But again, you can always glaze to take those down. And you can always grab a little bit of your ashen blue if you want to kind of fuzz them out a little. You can just paint over them with your previous shadow. Or previous highlight, I should say. Just trying to block out a lot of the shadow up here and bring up everything because top of the arm. Yay, Thormel. Good job. Ooh, new car shopping. Sweet. Oh, jeez. The antics. Yeah, I have to wait for our yard dude to get us a quote on the fence and talk to our neighbors. I was hoping he'd get it to us today so I could talk to them this weekend. Because I'd rather, you know, they're probably more likely to be home on the weekend. Although we have a lot of retirees in this neighborhood, so maybe they're home all the time. Alrighty, a little bit of glazing here, just spot glazing, where I'm just like kind of going over with very little paint the areas to kind of smooth them out. The existing fence is extremely wobbly. It could last till tomorrow or it could last 5 years. But the point is, Pendrake, we just pulled out all the oleanders back there and we're about to plant new plants. So it's much easier to fix the fence right now when there is nothing in front of it. Makes the work a lot easier and less labor intensive. It would be a mess if we planted the new plants and then had to try to put in a fence around that. So it kind of has to be done before we put the new plants in, but we have to get the neighbors on board with it because that's how you do it here. I actually haven't met our back across the fence neighbors. There we go. So that light's coming up very nicely on the arm. I do need to extend it a little bit down here. Yeah, so it's not a terrible fence, but it's definitely, I mean, I think our side fence is the same and from the same era, but we didn't pull out those plants, and so I don't know that it's gonna, like, it probably is gonna just fall over and then we'll have to do something. doing a little bit of glazing here, a little bit of touch up here. I want the light to be really strong on the arm, but kind of falling off the front so we can see the shape of the arm. So I need to block out, see this really dark shadow I have still up here. I need to get rid of those. So I'm going to paint them over with ash and blue. But yeah, this is stage 1 of puppy house, because we had to take out those poisonous plants in order to have the puppy. Because baby puppies, especially baby Shilohs, they put everything in their mouths, just like baby humans. So even if they're not going to eat it, if it's poisonous, that's not good. Alrighty. So just kind of like bringing in more highlights and taking that shadow down. Both the, using both the ashen blue and the Akata blue. And I'm still using that same brush stroke that's in line with the texture I want. So that everything is consistent. Everything feels like that texture. And the more you layer the texture over itself, the softer of an effect you get. Yeah, the oleanders went because they are poisonous. Also, I just don't like them. But mostly I don't like them because poisonous. Like, they irritate your hands even if you have sensitive skin and you touch them. So they are just, I'm not a fan. Not a fan. The new ones we're putting in, I can't remember the name of it, but they have little white flowers in the spring, and it's not jasmine. It's a different plant, but we have it on one other side of our house, and I like it. So it's an evergreen. Oh, funny. Well, Amelia Peabody did wear, like, mostly men's clothing, right? Except for the split skirts. But didn't she, like, wear actual, like, I don't know. Maybe she still, like, wore refashioned skirts later in the book series. I don't remember. I do love that book series, though. Especially because I'm such a fan of Egyptology and old Egypt, the original, like, archaeological explorations. My dad had a book on it when I was a kid, and I would always, like, read it fascinatedly. Even though it was way too dry for me at, like, age 10, but I still loved it. All right, so you've got some nice light there now. Looking at that on the front, looking at that on the back, yeah. I can see the arm catching the light. The sleeve is more curving, kind of flat. It has a little flare at the bottom, though. I just realized that. When I look at it from the side, can you see how it flares backwards? So that means I actually might bring down some light on that bottom of that sleeve. Just a little bit, though. I don't want to confuse the eye. So I'm going to grab some of my ashen blue with just a tiny bit of Akata blue in it. And I'm going to bring that up just a little. I have to figure out what we're going to replace this guy with. I have to figure out what we're going to replace a lot of things with. There we go. So now that's a little bit better. A little bit of that on the side too, of the next one. Again, you don't want to have it just on one fold. You want at least a suggestion of it on the fold next to it, so that you're being consistent. You're showing how the light trails off as the sleeve curls more under. You're highlights are giving visual information, like painting is visual information. So trying to tell your viewer what's going on. There we go. Okay. Sweet. Blue, blue, blue. All of our medium blue is complete. Yeah. All right, cool. What do we got? Hey, we got time. Let's do a glaze on this. I think I might have used Ultramarine Shadow for the shadows on this. I'm pretty sure I did, actually. So let's see what I can do with that textured area. Where are you, Ultramarine Shadow? It's Ultramarine Blue. That's light blue. There's Riddick. That is not in the right place. Oh, come on, Ultramarine Shadow. I know you're in here. There we go. Every other blue on creation. No, the mail things that showed up in the mail were my Christmas present from David. I do have, I did put in a Reaper order over in December to get free stuff, and also to get a few models that I might use. I regularly, if I need paint, I always order a few of the newest models so that I have choices when it comes to replacing a mini. All right, so let's do, I think I'm going to take my little wash. I made a little glaze here of like Templar. I'm going to actually drop a couple of drops of this into it. Now I am going to use some brush on sealer for this. So I want this to be a wash. I want it to be a really lightweight wash, and I want it to sit in the texture, this weird texture that's on the inside of this cape. But I also feel like I want this to be a bit muted, so I think I'm also going to add a little bit of the Stormchaser blue to take it down. That is not the most effective way to take it down, however. Let's see. Maybe I'll actually do Stormchaser and add just a little bit of the Ultramarine into it. Robin, 26 months and on a 26-month streak, which is insane. Yeah, I'm almost like kind of sad that like my next two models that I need to finish. One is a commission and one is the bust that I showed earlier for the Privateer Press Grandmaster. So like, and technically there's a 28mm model for the Grandmaster as well that I was thinking about doing. There we go. That's more the color. So I did a 50-50 of Stormchaser and Ultramarine. Let's see. Can we get this camera to actually like, there it is. Oh, there. Got to cover up enough of the white. So that's the color you get. That's Ultramarine Shadow next to it. You can see the beautiful color. Stormchaser is actually next to it, which you have a hard time seeing it. Mixing these two gives me a more saturated version of this and a bit darker version of it as well, as kind of the pigments in it kind of cross paths and mute each other out. And I like that a little bit better. It has a trace of this. I may lighten it a little bit, but we'll see. But yeah, I have a lot. I have minis, two minis one mini I'm about to finish, and then, well, two technically, David's present, and then I'll move on to another two. And then after I finish those two, like, I actually can start some exciting new stuff. Not that my competition entry isn't exciting new stuff, but I would like to just be able to paint whatever. That was definitely a competition entry where I was like, I have to paint something by this company. And there isn't a whole lot that I like from that company, but I like this. So the 28mm model, I just need to figure out a base for. Also, actually, you know what? I'm going to ask you guys. I'm looking for bark for basing. And do you know, like, anybody got, like, a resource where they get bark for their basing? Other than going out into the great outdoors and picking it up? Because there isn't a whole lot of it around here. So I'm mixing a lot of sealer in this. Because I want it to stick in the texture. Yeah, bark for basing. Tree bark for the most part, yes. I know a lot of people use like reptile bark, and maybe I should just get a bag of that. But I kind of want to build up some big areas. Yeah, so you guys just go to the park. Good fairy garden stuff. Good idea, Lady Nim. That's a good search term for me. Hold on, let me make a note. Fairy garden. Fairy garden bark. That would be about the right scale. No. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, you burn wood. I'd rather not use charcoal or charred stuff. Our city does not give us wood for free. They'll give you compost, but not wood. And the bark that I have in my in the yard, like to the mulch and stuff, just isn't the right shape. It's not the right kind of wood. Alrighty, let's see here. So I've mixed this up and I've thinned it way down. And I've moved it to a new well, and I'm going to test it. I just want to bring out a little bit of shadow here. That's going to really darken it down. I'm going to blend it in. I just want a little bit of texture here. I don't want to wipe out the highlight, but I want a little bit of a wash of texture. So like that. Just a subtle shadow. I just don't want it to be totally blank. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I was thinking is reptile bark, Cornico. Yeah, I was looking. See, my thing is, I don't want to go out searching for it. I have no time in my schedule. So I'm just like, I need to be able to order something so that I can just fire and forget. All right, let's grab this and getting my brush wet, damp, wiping it off, blending in the edge. Mostly I've always just sculpted stuff and used cork before, but I'd like to play around with some bark, so that's why I'm asking chat. So again, putting a stripe in, rinsing out my brush, squeezing the water out, using the damp brush to blend in the edge. Just a pretty quick and dirty treatment there. And I think this was Frost. It's not Glacier. I think it is Pathfinder Ice Devil. Yeah, it's Ice Devil. Because it has a definite green tinge to it. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of Ice Devil. Nice, Pendrake. Yeah, I don't know if I want to go with a real basing company because it's going to be so much more pricey that way. Sometimes it's worth it to buy expensive basing materials. There's one thing that I'm thinking about using on my, well, it's just a little bit too small. The base for Tara that we've got to do for Paint Along finish this month. But it's, I think it's called Deadwood. And it's essentially woodland scenics, and it gives you tiny tree limbs, like twigs, that are shaped like bigger tree limbs that have fallen or bigger trees. And that stuff is worth paying for because it's the right scale for what we do. And there's quite a few pieces of it. So one package has lasted me years. But when I need a fallen limb or something interesting and organic, that stuff is where I go. So in that case, I definitely do use an expensive hobby supply instead of looking for a natural thing. But when it comes to just making like big, like platforms of organic material, like that are stone plus turf and all that, I feel like bark is the fastest. Yeah, I don't have, oh, it's fine. No, that's the wrong kind of bark, Twistodoma. I want thick, chunky bark. Bark that I can build stuff on. Thick bark. I used to have crepe myrtles in Texas. Actually, I'm not a fan. But yeah, the bark there is too thin and wispy. I'm going to bring in a little bit more of an edge here. Soften it. You can always take your original base coat over and kind of soften the edge of this blend. Do a wet blend if you want. Yeah, not really looking for that. I do not have a 3D printer, so not applicable right now for me. And I'm trying to just kind of tweak this to the point where I don't mind it. I just want a little bit of shading. So I'm going back and forth, and I added a little bit more Stormchaser to my wash, and I'm adding more sealer. Not the right scale, Grey Mouser. That's why I like the Deadfall. And I feel okay recommending it, because it's not like Reaper doesn't make anything like it. It can be hard to find like good tree shapes and branch shapes to use that are the right scale. So really just using like washes here to bring out some of this texture. It's a very sealer heavy wash because I'm coming back in with my brush and I'm tweaking it with water. So I don't want it to have too much water in it off the bat. And the fact that I'm painting with a wash means that it's going to keep a little bit more of this texture that's sculpted on. I don't want a lot of it texture, but I want like enough so that I'm not like just painting over it. Although certainly if you didn't like the texture, you could certainly paint over it. Or you could use a heavy, thick gloss medium and just fill it in. Just hit it with a heavy coat. But this way, painting with a wash, it'll let me keep a little bit of the texture. Ah, there's a fold in there. I missed until I turned it and saw it. So there's a fold right there. No, it's fine. It's fine. I think I'm going to look up like fairy garden materials and also just order a bag of reptile bark and see. I'm bound to be able to use it. Whatever I get, I'll figure it out because part of the fun of the hobby is just like picking up random stuff and innovating with it. So I've got some nice actual, let's see if I can get this to show up a little better. We're getting some nice gradations on the blue here. When you've got such a fine texture as this, it really is just a fine grid. It's probably not worth doing a lot of work on it, like trying to bring out that texture. So this kind of treatment can just give you a good enough result to bring out the details and be done. Technically, you might be able to dry brush it, but the texture is so fine, I think it would be a challenge. So I'm not going to. Now I'm going to go back in here and make sure that I've got... Here it's easier because it's mostly in shadow, and I just need to make sure that some areas are a little darker and some areas stick out a little more. It's all right. I'm sure there's plenty of lawn and yard places. Pendrake, I don't need a link. I can remember that name too. We don't need a link in the chat. But I think I'm going to try fairy garden supply and reptile bark because I'm pretty sure those are going to be a little bit... Reptile bark will be very inexpensive. Or maybe I'll make myself go to a pet store and look at it in person, since then I'm more likely to get what I'm looking for. Sometimes I just want to be lazy, though. I'd much rather be doing other things than going to stores. There we go. Oh my gosh. Okay, so again, painting with washes to get that shadow to come in nicely. Darkening it closer to the body and under the arm. And grabbing some of my Ace Double Blue to bring up highlights again. Oh, big gray squirrel now. Out in the backyard. There we go. Get the light coming out and we're pretty good. Do a little bit kind of 50-50 mix here. Try to wet blend. Blend in that edge so I get a fade. That's good. All right, so we got that done. And we're pretty much, that's pretty good for the day, I think. The next thing to do And we've got so much done. I need to highlight little Ratty's, some of Ratty's pink. And I need to finish the cape back here. Maybe we'll put a fancy border on part of it, like a big wide border with some runes or something on the bottom, because then we can do all the gold together. Marmundo, yeah, I take stretch breaks. Like, this stream is an hour and a half, and that's usually, like, that's fine. That's as much as I can do. When I'm doing longer sessions, I try to break every hour. And if you have a really bad back, try to break every half hour. Set a timer. Put your phone next to you. Set a timer when you paint. Get in the habit of doing so. If you have a significant other you paint with, then ask them to set a timer and remind you. If you're unreliable about it, since it's for your health, I'm sure they will be happy to do so. But I tend to just set a timer, or I'll, like, if I put on music, I'll just count off like 6 songs and then I'll do it. I try to keep my back as straight as I can. Raising your table or your painting surface helps because you don't have to hunch over as much then. Here, unfortunately, I've got the camera to paint around, so I kind of have to have a weird posture, but when I'm painting at my own desk, I try to either lower my seat or raise my surface area as far as where I'm painting so that I don't have to, there's less distance between me and the table as far as my, where I'm working. A lot of painters will even put a pillow on their lap to kind of keep their hands, at a better level or angle and to rest. So that's another thing. But more than anything, doing stretching exercises in the morning before you start your day. I stretch for 10 minutes every morning, and it is a vast improvement on my back and how it feels when I do this. And I do this every day, and I paint usually twice a day. So my total painting time every day is about 3 hours, probably more if I'm doing examples for a Patreon thing. And so, plus I'm doing, sitting, typing, doing a lot of stuff for Patreon and other stuff. So, Haldor, yeah. You're welcome. Yeah, this is like actually the least cool, in some ways it's the least cool mini we've been working on. Like, Tiefling is almost done. He's looking cool. And then the bust that we were working on also is really neat. She's coming along nicely. But yeah, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Darius is cool, even if he's not like my favorite right now. We'll do a little freehand on his cape. He'll be an okay figure. So yeah, next time we have Darius, I'll bring up some of the pinks here, probably make them a little bit more saturated on the rat's paws, maybe even touch up around his nose. And then we will do a bit of a border back here, outline, underpaint, some freehand on the back of his cape. First, we'll have to highlight that cape real quick. And then, then it's just the gold. He doesn't have an elaborate base, and I probably won't do him with one. So he is looking pretty good. Yeah, you could do that. More than any of the, I've got to say that I'm not a fan of a lot of things to rest your arms on, because sometimes you can cut off circulation that way. It puts pressure on places that you really shouldn't have pressure on, as far as your arms when you're working like this. I'm much more a fan of doing stretches. Like, I do a bit of yoga, a bit of physical therapy that I learned from when my back went out. Mostly it's yoga and normal stretches, though, just to strengthen my core and stretch out my back so that it can sit without pain. Stretching, if I don't stretch, I feel it. If I don't stretch, I mess myself up. And I have had this tested before when I've skipped a few days on vacation. So I cannot advise the morning stretch routine. And it only takes 10 minutes, and it sets me up for success and doesn't, I don't have back pain while I paint here. So that's what I would most recommend. But yes, tomorrow, hey, guess what, guys? He's still free, and we just have to get the legs done, and then we have to get the purple done. And then, maybe we'll do some tiles. But yeah, so tomorrow's Bronze Golem. And I hope you all have fun. And I hope you had a good day. And I hope you have a good day. Stretchies. Stretchies are definitely necessary at this point. So yeah, what we did today is we finished up Darius's cloth. We talked a lot about like warm tones, why it's challenging to do kind of a washed out skin tone and still pull the eye. We used a wash to paint in some shadows on the light blues. Yeah. So we're moving right along, and I have to pick a mini to replace this one with once we get there. So yeah, tomorrow, the bronze column. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Sorry, not tomorrow. Monday. Yes, I mean Monday, sorry. Tomorrow is Anne's stream. Twitch.tv/ I told you I didn't have any focus today. Twitch.tv/paintingbig, when we are going to be working on finishing David's model, David's Christmas present, since he's going to be back on Sunday. It has to be done. So tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. USA Central Time, then we will do that. Thank you all for coming along on this ride. Sorry I was so addle-brained. And yeah, we'll see you guys. Have fun.